Okay, and now we have the solutions that are going to be worked out for you for our second turn-in that was in the packet. And again, we're solving linear equations in this second turn-in. These become a little bit more complicated than the first ones, but pretty straightforward. Again, our object is to isolate and get x by itself throughout, so that's what we want to do. I'm going to undo any addition and subtraction that I see first by doing the inverse operation. So I'm adding 7 to x, so I'm going to subtract 7. Carrying down the result, I get a negative 5x. The 7's will cancel. You get a negative and a negative. So on this side, when you're putting two negatives together, you add the numbers and keep the sign. So I get negative 5x is equal to a negative 45. Divide by what's multiplying x, which in this case is a negative 5, and you get x equals 45 divided by 5 is 9, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we get x equals 9. Okay, question number 2. We have 17 minus x equals 4, and when we went through these questions and we graded them, a lot of us got confused because of the negative in front of the x. We didn't know what to do with it, so pay attention to what's happening with that negative in front of x. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 17 from both sides. Carrying down the result, don't lose that negative, it's still there in front of the x, so it's a negative x equals. And then again, if you remember the things we did in class, if you want to, you can say you're adding a negative 17, and we have the signs being different. So if the signs are different, I subtract the numbers, and I keep the sign of the absolute value of the larger number, so that's going to be a negative 13. Okay? And then now, many of you guys left it like this, so we didn't know what to do with that negative. Remember, it's like a negative 1, or it's like having a negative 2, a negative 3, negative 4. You divide by that number. This is a negative 1. So I'm going to divide both sides, or multiply both sides in this case. It doesn't really matter, by that negative 1. X is equal to, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, 13. The other way you can think about it is if you're left with a negative x, the last thing you need to do is change the signs on both sides. Essentially, that's what you're doing when you are when you have a negative in front of x. Number 3, going down to the bottom, we have 4x minus 7 is equal to 33. This is pretty straightforward. I need to add that 7 to both sides. We get 4x is equal to 40. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I'm going to get x is equal to 10. I'm hoping you guys are starting to see, the solution to linear equations, solving for x. Not too bad. Okay, now we start to get into ones that are a little bit more difficult. Now remember what we talked about in class. Here are the two sides of the equation, and what I'm going to have to do first is I'm going to have to simplify both sides before I can begin to solve. So this left-hand side can be simplified because I can take 8x and subtract x since they're on both the same side of the equation. We can do that first. There's 7x is equal to x plus 24. All right, so now both sides of the equation are as simplified as we can get it. Now I want to try to get this x over with the 7x. We'll get these x's together. So I'm going to subtract that x from the right-hand side to zero it out. 7x minus x is 6x is equal to 24. Then I'm going to divide by 6 because that's what's multiplying x, and I get x is equal to 4. Number 5. Once again, x is now on both sides of the equal sign, so I look at this side, it's simplified. I looked at this side, it's simplified. So now I can begin my solving process. You're better off starting with a smaller value in front of x to keep your x's negative, keep your x's positive when you're solving. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. The 5x's on this side will cancel. Carry down the result. Carry down that 16 and keep it negative. Over here, 6x minus 5x is x plus 4. Then I'm going to subtract my 4 from both sides. And I get x is equal to, now again, remember, we're adding this, all right? Adding, when you subtract, the same thing as adding a negative, so the signs are the same. So I add the two numbers, and I keep the sign. So x is a negative 20. Again, with a calculator, that'll be pretty easy, but without a calculator, you guys are going to have to be able to do that on your own. And last one for this do now. Again, this side is simplified, this side is simplified. Can't do anything with it. Remember that equation separating your sides, or that equal sign. So I'm going to take the smaller coefficient of the x, and I'm going to subtract that value or expression from both sides. These will cancel. I'm left with 12 is equal to 40x minus 35x is 5x plus 42. My x is here, so I want to get it by itself, so I'm going to subtract 42. Again, the goal is to get x by itself, so I'm going to move things away from it. On this side of the equal sign, I have 5x. On this side, remember it's like adding a negative 42. The signs are different, so take the difference, which is 30, and keep the sign of the larger number, larger absolute value, I should say, and that's going to be the 42, so it's going to be negative. Then divide by 5, divide by 5. X is equal to 30 divided by 5 is 6, and when you're dividing numbers with different signs, it's negative. And those are the solutions to turn in number 2.